You're looking for that next possibility, right? And you don't necessarily have a deadline to achieve it. You don't necessarily have a goal other than, it'd be nice to be if I advance in rank by, 2016 or 2017 or whatever. It's just really generalities. And you do the things that you're expected to do, like set a goal and, make contact and invite, and you're refining those skills, but there's no urgency whatsoever in what you're doing. And so when you sponsor somebody, if you actually do sponsor somebody, the tendency is for you to duplicate your behavior in them. And so they do exactly the same thing. They bring the onesies and twosies, they're sort of getting their feet wet, they're setting their goal and so forth. And this thing called the $1 million list or the 100 name list or whatever is illusion. What's the word? Illusionary? Whatever. Anyway, you never see it. And rarely do you actually hear about somebody exploding onto the scene, which is puzzling because essentially when somebody joins the business for the purposes of building a big business, and you've heard historically, not only in Nikken, but other network marketing gurus tell you when they join a company, they explode onto the scene. They never do the onesies and twosies. So anybody who's making six figures in network marketing didn't get there by accident. It was with a very focused effort and campaign. And it wasn't something they fell into for the most part. And even if it was, do you want Lady Luck to be the thing that you're waiting for to inspire you? By the way, this used to be a Nikken glass. Oh, there it is. You can partly see the logo on it. It's sort of fading away, metaphorically speaking. So anyway, the point I'm saying is get on with it. Get a plan together. Get a focused effort together, especially if you're going to sponsor somebody new, because if you don't have that plan in your own mind, if you don't have that map for yourself, first of all, you're not going to be drawing the law of attraction to you. Secondly, the person you recruit, they may be somebody who could have gone platinum in 3 months, and you would never have known it because you never set that up. And they didn't know because they don't know any better. And I'll give you a simple example. One of my best examples is Marty Jeffrey. Here's a guy who was never involved in network marketing, yet he went platinum in 90 days. He produced $28,500 in his third month check. And yes, we all know and love Marty and his ways. But if you actually took stock of everybody he brought into his business, not a single one of them is even a fraction of Marty Jeffrey in terms of his character, his performance ability, his success, his ability to produce results and so forth. They were all people that he thought needed the Nikken opportunity. So if you were to, you would think, yeah, no, he brought in all these heavyweights and of course, blah, blah, blah. No, that's exactly the opposite of what he did. He brought in Joe Blow, who was doing their thing in small town, Canada, with small town mentality. And I don't think a single one of those people have emerged anywhere else in anything else in a way that you and I would have heard of it, or they're not on the radar of success in life in general in a bigger way. So what does that tell you? It tells you that what happened was there was a plan. The plan was executed. It produced the result. The result was duplicatable because all you had to do is do the plan again, because it took just about anybody to do it. But it does take a plan. And a lot of people come into this business, they refer to the Nikken plan, which we didn't have until 2 years ago. Before then, we had other people's versions of that, 6 + 500 or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a wedding. I'm talking about what does it take to plan a wedding and to actually execute that plan on a specific date with all the people that you're choreographing so that everybody comes to the church on time, everybody gets to the hall on time, You know, the photographs are taken, the musicians are there, the DJ's there, the food is served at an hour, the dance begins at an hour. You know, the flowers, the flower girls, the bridesmaids, the maid of honor. Just think of all the moving parts of such a thing. But if there wasn't a date set, how many of those moving parts would actually happen? How many of them would come together? Booking a hall is the first thing you have to do because they're already like 2-3 years out. So think in terms of what happens as a consequence of a date with destiny. When you have a date with destiny, and it's not like they're saying, well, you know, okay, well, if the flowers don't get done by, you know, it's okay, we can push the wedding off another couple weeks. You know, we'll wait till the last minute to decide whether it doesn't happen. It's not a question. The decision is made, the date is set, and then everything must follow, no matter what it takes. And that's the kind of attitude that if you approached your Nikken business with, you could produce those kind of results, the kind of results that people talk about and are get excited about. And so it's very rare in network marketing to hear about that because the generality is, oh, you get involved part-time, you can dabble in it, you can grow it, you can, you know, if you think about the culture of network marketing as it's described, you know, you hear about this long-term play, constant, you know, dedication, keep it going and so forth. But that's not what makes the big checks. The big checks in network marketing are people who came on the scene and exploded onto the scene. And why did they do that? Because they have network marketing experience. That's what, if their experience taught them slow and steady wins the race, don't you think that's what they would be doing? But these people with the six-figure checks, that's not what they're doing. Explosion onto the scene. So are you hearing me okay, or is my connection frozen? You're hearing me okay? Because I'm getting a message every now and then that my connection's a little unstable.
Yeah, it is. You warble and a bit, but you know, we can still hear you, Michael.
Okay, I can fix that. I just have to open the door where the thing is behind. So give me 1 second.
Okay. Iona, that was a very creative solution. Get in the car and drive down to Sonia's.
I wonder if it's Mike's, just Mike's, because mine keeps saying connection unstable. I wonder if it's Zoom.
It's probably a combination of more than just one, yeah.
Okay, that should be better. So, now, this plan. So we have a date with destiny. That means you have an outcome that you want to see happen on a specific day. I believe that if you extend time too long, too much, it actually is counterproductive. I'll give you an example. The longer we have made it possible for somebody to go silver, the less silvers we're creating. That's a fact. So we think, oh, but it's so much easier now that you only have to do, yeah, well, who's doing it? So there's a psychology, there's a law of physics, maybe it's an unwritten rule. That's why I call this the science of the Nikken business, because there's a science here that maybe we don't understand, but we can predict. I can predict that the longer you give anything, the less likely you're going to have it happen. So it's like the radiation. It's inversely proportional to the radius squared. So the more you give it, it's inversely proportional to the time squared. So, so I like to do things in a very short time because I know it can be done. So let's take, for example, you sponsor somebody brand new today. And they are actually somebody who wants to do this business in a serious way. Well, then I would say we're going to pick 3 days next week, and I want to see 30 people next week. In order for you to be sure that we're going to see 30 people next week, you need a names list of at least 100 people. How important is it that they prepare that names list right now? All of a sudden, that names list becomes gold. It is the very thing that makes it possible for the next week to happen. No different than a wedding scenario. You don't book the church, forget about the wedding. You don't book the hall, it ain't going to happen. So you have to have certain things in place, even in order to be able to initiate such a launch strategy. But we tend to say, oh, I don't want to push them. You know, they're not really sure, they're undecided. Well, perfect. Let's just set them up to fail so that they can prove to themselves it was a stupid decision. And then they can go and tell all their friends about how network marketing, they got sucked into that thing. I would much rather set somebody up to succeed or to quit rather than waste my time leading them down this path of no return. And so I find that the people who don't launch their business, they may be around, they may stick around and they'll do the onesies and twosies, but they may never see those big checks that they dream of. It doesn't happen until something happens. So if it isn't them, it has to be somebody they recruit, but somebody is going to have to explode onto the scene for anything to happen. And usually what happens is somebody does. And then you hear that story. And, oh, who sponsored them? Oh, so-and-so. Oh, you're so lucky you found blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, they're like, they hadn't a clue. They were not choreographing that effort at all. They just lucked out and got somebody who knew what to do. So I don't believe in running my business by chance. I believe in running it on purpose, which means having a plan. Even failing to execute that plan is okay. I don't mind that at all. I'd just rather have a plan than no plan at all, because that's a assured failure. So we have a date with destiny. We now know that there are certain things that have to be prepared for this thing to actually unfold. So Mike Dimuccio signs up December 19th. I knew enough to know, having been involved in network marketing 12 months earlier, that you have to launch. You have to go like a banshee. You know, you got to create a big explosion. Reed Nelson's word, IOMA, all out massive action. His other vernacular, create a big mess and we'll clean it up later. All saying the same thing. Massive rapid exposure. Tons of exposure, short period of time, find out who's interested, group that group together and do it again. So I took the 2 weeks of December to find who might want to be a part of that launch campaign. Hear me out. I was not in launch. I was finding people who wanted to be part of a launch. So I was in pre-launch. So there's a new term. There's a pre-launch to the launch. The pre-launch is when the person who is going to be launched is gathering up a team, and it's the team that's going to launch. And so in the pre-launch, it was very private, it was very one-on-one, it was very onesie-twosie scenario. That's pre-launch. It's not indefinite. It doesn't go like that indefinitely. It's just in a small window to gather up a group, but the group needs to understand what it is that you're gathering them up for. You're not gathering them up to be in Nikken. They can do that anytime. You're gathering them up to do a launch. It's the campfire analogy. You gather up the logs, you light a match. Now, of course, in a campfire, it wouldn't be worth gathering up wet logs. So you need to gather up dry logs. What are dry logs? Hot prospects. People who have ambition and desire and the need to do something great. So this phase of pre-launch shouldn't take very long, because you already know, assuming you were brand new, you would already know the dry logs on your list. You already know them. These are people you know. So there's some fundamental assumptions you can make that are probably not inaccurate. So this pre-launch is about gathering up the logs. It's about pulling a small group of people together under the premise that there is going to be a launch and you have a launch date. So the first thing you start with in your launch plan, other than your date with destiny down the road, is the launch date. That's the next date that I need to know. When am I actually launching? Because between now and then is my pre-launch. So let's say I sponsor somebody today. I'm going to tell them January 2nd is our launch. We start off the month of January in launch mode. Now, we have between now and the month and January 2nd to gather up some dry logs. So we need that list of yours, and we need it yesterday. And so now we're going to figure out through that list of names who's going to be on the launch team. So we're going to go through an exercise, a process. Essentially is a launch, but I'm calling it a pre-launch. In their mind, it's pre-launch, because the official launch is when all the kids on the team are in the starting blocks, ready to run the race at the same time. So I've got to get them in the starting blocks. So I'm going to just talk about this 2-week thing as a pre-launch. Now let's move into the launch. What exactly is a launch? Well, if you sponsored half a dozen or so people in the next 2 weeks, how are you going to manage all the activity that would ensue? You can't do it one at a time. It's just not conceivable. In a launch scenario, it doesn't get done that way. In a launch scenario, you gather them up, you work together, and all of a sudden this thing called a wellness preview gets born. Now, I want to make a distinction. The word wellness preview connotes in our mind a specific thing. And now people have wellness previews because they think they're supposed to have a wellness preview in their city. And then the wellness preview grows, and then it shrinks, and then they're feeling bad because now, so we're just going to do a wellness preview once every 2 weeks. Oh no, now we're going to do it once every month. And they don't realize that a wellness preview is a consequence of a need to put a whole bunch of people in a location, and you can't fit them in your living room. Because if I could fit them in my living room, I don't need a public venue. So when I think wellness preview, I think public event. Otherwise, we're talking about a business meeting, which you can have anywhere. You can have it in one-on-one, you can have it in a living room. But a wellness preview, for our purposes of this definition, is a public event. So obviously, if I've got half a dozen or so people who want to now launch come January, how am I going to fit them in my living room? If 6 people are committed to bringing 5 people each, myself included, that's a lot of people. You may be able to fit them in the living room. I doubt it. So there's where the need comes to have a public event. Hence we coined the term wellness preview. But at the same time, the wellness preview is a step in a process of bringing somebody into the business. So let's just consider the step in the process a conversation. I talk about 3 conversations. The first conversation is the contact and invite, and it's the creating interest. Dennis Estes took this straight out of the launch career plan and launch strategy information of a decade or plus ago. First conversation, create interest. Second conversation, builds belief. Third conversation, activation. So what is that? First conversation, about the 5 pillars, identifying their need and finding out whether or not there's a reason for somebody to entertain an opportunity. There's no Nikken in this conversation. The conversation of Nikken is next. So if you're already engaging in a conversation about Nikken when you're in your first conversation, you're already too far beyond. You're not following the process of how it works psychologically. First and foremost, there's identify the need, and that has nothing to do with Nikken. There could be different needs for somebody, and Nikken could fit the bill, but we have to first identify the need. Then, when you're prepared to solve their need, their crisis, their issue, enter the solution. That's the Nikken presentation. So now you go into an official presentation. That's your second conversation, where you present and validate the information that you're presenting through testimonials, through product experience, through ABC call, whatever, so that you can build belief in the value of the products and the opportunity. That should conclude in their mind psychologically that they would either like to be a customer or a consultant, but we're not done yet. If they just want to be a customer, that's where the process ends for the recruiting cycle. And now we engage them as a customer, and we work on that in that department, which Nikken is now beefing up. However, I'm not done with, because I don't want somebody joining Nikken. I want somebody joining the launch. I'm recruiting for a launch. See the difference? So now I'm not only answering why Nikken and why now. It's why Nikken, why now, and why with me. That third part is really important, because otherwise they can join Nikken anytime and they can join Nikken with somebody else. I haven't created the urgency and the reason for them to join Nikken now and to join with me. Because if I don't have a plan that I'm hatching up, then there's no urgency. There's no reason for them to join me. But if I'm part of something, a plan I'm going to execute, or part of a group that's going to execute a plan, then joining Nikken now with me is the story I have to tell. So that's the third conversation. The third conversation is going to tell them, what's the plan? If I decide to get involved now with you, what's it going to take? What's it going to require of me in terms of my time, my resources, and my sphere of influence? So now I have to present the third conversation, which is an explanation of where their time, money, and contacts are going to fit in to this thing that we're going to do, that at the end of which they're going to be very happy they did, and there's going to be a tangible result that they will benefit from. You see, now it's not about 15 years from now, you're going to be a royal diamond, you'll be thanking me. Nobody's thinking like that. 3 months from now, you're going to be a gold, and you're going to be thanking me. 90 days away from a change in life. That sounds pretty interesting. Tell me more. See what I mean? How many people do you have this conversation with? When is the last time you had that conversation? That's the difference between doing Nikken the onesies and twosies way and hoping someday you strike upon a Dave Johnson or something, or it's the purposeful way of doing it and by the law of attraction attracting a Dave Johnson. Because now you've created a reason to find a Dave Johnson. You now need somebody to launch. You need somebody to do this with. It's like, I've got the blueprints, but I don't have the people to do this, to put this building up with. I better go find those people because I got the blueprints. But if you don't even have the blueprints, so this launch strategy is critical in how you conduct your conversations and how you present the information and how you even think in terms of the information and the people. No different than a date with destiny and a wedding. You know, if you now know that you're having a wedding and you want pictures, are you going to just take the first person who comes along and says, oh, I'm a photographer, I can rent the camera, don't worry, I can do it? You see what I mean? Everything changes once the dynamic is set. Once you create the matrix of what is going to happen, then you start filling in the pieces to make that matrix happen. So in January, come January, in order for me to execute a launch with all these people, assuming between now and January I have all these people, and we'll get back to the story of what do I have to tell, what's the story I have to tell in those 2 weeks of pre-launch, whether it's this month, next month, or 3 months from now, when I sponsor somebody new, what's the story that has to be told in the pre-launch so that come launch, we have somebody to launch with? Well, the launch is public events. We now need a calendar of public events to support all of the funnel of people that are going to have to go through a process. And now this process has to be staged publicly, because we can't manage people individually when there's that many people and there's not enough competence in the network for you to trust that everybody knows how to manage somebody through the process. And so the growth of your business is a function of the ability to download competence, and competence on an individual basis when you've got a growing exponential, growing organization's not doable on a one-on-one basis. It has to be done in a managed event schedule. So your event schedule will also include basic and advanced training. Your event schedule will include the prospecting, the presenting information. So for me, I always had an event, at least one, probably multiple in the course of the week that people could bring people to and have that second conversation. I also had an event in my schedule once a week where I could have the third conversation with whoever brought anybody who needed that third conversation. That boardroom table in the other room, that's what that table is for. It was for the third conversation. I want to have a business conversation. I've got a flip chart there because I need to draw the pictures, explain the concept of what it looks like to launch the business. And when our next drop dead date is for them to be a part of that. So as you see, I'm enrolling people into an agenda that's already well established, that already has dates with destiny. There's not just my big date, there's also a bunch of subsets to that. What's the drop dead date for this next wave? So every time a wave happens, and what I mean by a wave is a generation is born. So let's say today, this week, in the next 2 weeks, a generation is born, frontline, to whoever is building frontline, all of you. Let's say 2 weeks from now, you all have 3 new people frontline. That's a generation. The next generation is when all those people you just brought in have their first generation born. That's the next phase or the next wave or the next generation. So I think generationally. Each wave is a succession of generations being born. So you've got to create these waves so that these generations can be born. You have to think in terms of these so that generations can be born. If you're only thinking about one person finding that next person maybe someday, you're not at all creating what I'm talking about. You're not going to attract the circumstances where this possibility can unfold. But if you shift your thinking, open your consciousness up to, oh, we're working in waves, generation after generation. No matter who in my network is in my network today, the question is, who's going to be born in the next wave? So I have to be thinking in terms of waves. Well, have you ever been to a wave pool? They do this. They create waves by pushing the water. And you see the waves. And the next wave. The next wave. So you have to do this. You have to create waves. Well, what does that look like in our business? How does that translates into a calendar of events? I need a calendar of events. I need to be building towards that event. And the calendar needs to have a beginning and an end for each wave, a cycle. So now we're talking rhythm. There's a rhythm to this. There's a daily rhythm. There's a weekly rhythm. There's a monthly rhythm. And there's a quarterly rhythm. Those are the rhythms. So the daily rhythm is the contact and invite. That happens in the pre-launch phase. The weekly rhythm is the event schedule that allows me to take newbies through the last 2 conversations. The one-on-one conversations, the daily rhythm, is all the people out there right now talking to people to get them to the second conversation and the third conversation. So that should happen within a week. We should have closed the week with all 3 conversations have happened, and the conclusion of that is people are joining the network and people are becoming customers. So now week number 2 starts. So week number 2, same thing. The daily events lead to that weekly event and the completion of the next wave. So we should be working in terms of waves every single week to get these generations going. But I'm just talking about the top end of the funnel still, because as you know and I know, for every 3 people who join the business, only 1 actually goes anywhere. But we can guarantee that number if we have a plan for that 1. We're going to tell everybody the plan, but only that 1 is going to jump to the opportunity. So the weekly cycle is to fill the pipeline of people who get to hear the secret. The secret is told before the end of the month. The secret handshake is given before the end of the month, and from that event, we call a lock-in event, we find out of all the people that joined the business as a customer / consultant, whatever mishmash, in the course of this month, on that breakout, on that one lock-in event, we are going to determine who of those people, the 1 in 3, want to be part of the launch in February. Because there's a launch in February. And the launch in February begins with this sequence of events. This is the event calendar for this launch. And so now your event calendar is only being built for people you're launching. Everybody's welcome to come and do their onesies and twosies. But the only people who are on the radar, and the only reason why you have this calendar, is to serve and service those in launch mode, the people who absolutely need this calendar. The others, they're just going to leverage it. Is this starting to make sense? Or am I confusing you? Do I continue or should I take some questions? Because there is another piece to this. There's just, I want to backtrack.
Any questions or comments?
Well, my
Mike, you
comment
explained
is,
it well.
Got this sun in my face here.
Mary Helen?
well, this is why I wanted you to do these talks again, Mike, because this is like so crystal clear, and it's not the conversation that I've been hearing. You know, I honestly have to say it's a whole different picture, and it's I've been doing the onesies and twosies, and every once in a while I get a blip here, but that hasn't sustained a business, and now it's well, it's time to really get some clarity here, and you're doing a beautiful job of painting that picture. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else? Thoughts, questions?
That's all in your book too, I take it, Mike.
Yeah. So let me
Valuable for people.
let me backtrack then to this pre-launch scenario. Because technically speaking, this is being repeated over and over again for each group that's joining the team. So if you think for each wave, they have to engage in a pre-launch, then you almost need a calendar that's specific for that group, separate and apart from anybody else. But the thing is, our calendars have all catered to the masses and not to the people who are supposed to be launching, because nobody is in launch mode, true launch mode. And so you get this generality happening, and with this generality, you get the lowest common denominator. And that's not productive. That's not how you build an organization. And it's up to the next group of diamonds or diamond wannabes to do what I'm talking about, to initiate this level of thinking and this level of activity. So I'll give an example of that, because when I joined Nikken, Reed Nelson was already a diamond. So it's not like I have to wait for a diamond or I need the coaching of a diamond. I need to decide that that's what I'm doing. And I had the benefit of Nikken being launched in Canada. So the story was, for me in pre-launch, it wasn't just my story that I invented. I was actually able to leverage the fact that Nikken was launching the country. That's why so many people, top networkers, jump from network marketing company to network marketing company, because they're all trying to get that story. The story of we're launching. And as long as they're part of the front end of that wave, they get to ride the wave as long as it's sustained. And they don't sustain. Why? Because they're not teaching this. They're not duplicating it. They just get to do it themselves because they learned something. They ride the wave as long as they can. You know, people are growing, whatever, and then things start to implode. Why? Because the competence has not been downloaded and the effort is not being sustained or duplicated. That's why. So how do we duplicate that? Well, Marty Jeffrey, two years after I launched, Canada was already launched, so we can't use that excuse. So what's the excuse? We made up one. We invented it. It was really simple. We're going to put Nikken on the map in the geographic, quote, the geographic center of trade of the world, Brandon, Manitoba. We invented it. It was just a story. But we got the appeal of the public because people from Brandon wanted to feel like they were part of something. So small town, we all get behind a cause. Yay! We're going to be on the, we're going to be a blip on the radar of this global giant. That appealed to people. Their sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? Community. Their sense of, what are patriotism, almost on a level of patriotic, right, to their town or whatever. So we invented it. It was just simply that. We were going to put Nikken on the map. We were going to create a world record in Brandon, Manitoba. It was going to be right here, right now. This is when it was. So that story is what we told. Every story we told that included that. Why? Because then people who wanted to be part of something in a boring life got to be part of something that was less boring. That was a possibility, that even a contribution like a sale of a Mag Boy contributed to the effort. So sales started to contribute to this cause, and people got behind the cause. They could relate to it. And so it created a situation that people got behind. So every launch has to have a cause. What's the situation? Because Nikken is already mature. They're 25 years in the market in North America. You can't say, oh, there was a kind of an attempt at this Nikken wide by calling it Nikken 2.0. That is all the whole thing behind this Nikken 2.0. It's to create an impression among the masses of Nikken consultants that there is a new Nikken in town. But if you don't do anything with it, is there a new Nikken in town? Hell no. It's just words. Just an idea. So the idea of bringing Nikken 2.0 to life is, what are you doing to bring Nikken 2.0 to life? You're the possibility of it coming to life, unless it's somebody else who just joins yesterday and says, oh, I love this Nikken 2.0. Man, I'm going to tear this thing up. So it could be you, it could be them. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be somebody you sponsored yesterday or somebody you sponsored tomorrow. The point is, launch somebody into something. Create a reason for that to happen. And it doesn't have to be because Nikken is new. That's not the reason. It's about putting something on the map. It's about putting Nikken on the map. Some of you may have heard me say that my business is really defined, it can be shown, you drop a pebble in a pond, it creates a splash, and then the waves start to permeate out. Well, after a little while, if you look at the center of the pond, you don't see anything. It's very smooth, very calm again, but the ripples are way out there. That's my Nikken business. The ripples have gone way out. There is nothing happening in Toronto on a public level. There's not a single public meeting in Toronto, the epicenter of Nikken's global operations for so many countries. What's the problem? Somebody didn't drop the pebble in the pond next. They're waiting for Mike Dimuccio to do it. Big mistake. So I'll take it on. Sure, why not? I'll make the next 20 million. Sure, why not? Somebody else could have. But they just sort of in their mind decided that it was my business, or I'm the leader of Canada. And so it's my responsibility, instead of somebody saying, you know what? Move over, buddy. Lead follower, get the hell out of my way. You saw my post in the last 24 hours. So the goal here is, let's launch. And so we together now, us on this call, and those who are going to be watching this in playback, can easily be a part of the next wave. Because quite frankly, you could roll a bowling ball down any street of North America, and nobody who hits it would know Nikken exists. So we need to do something different. And what we need to do is stop teaching the onesies and twosies as a generality. This book, it's great in theory. If you have the ability to endure the time that it takes to actually cultivate and develop a business like this, and if you have a good income coming in already, then this is fine. You can do this on the side, part-time, anytime, whatever. So this maybe is something that appeals to the masses, but I'm telling you something. The only reason why any network marketing company exists, is because there was a group of early adopters who launched the company. That gave these people a possibility to be involved and do their thing, which sustains the people at the top. These guys are the fuel that feeds that organization. But who got the thing going? It was a group of people who launched. It was a group of people who went like banshees, and they're the top income earners in Nikken, and that will always be the case in every network marketing company. I don't care what company it is. So you can wait until there's the next new thing, or you can make this the next new thing. It doesn't matter. It's all arbitrary. Create a reason why this is important. It's new enough. It's time to drop a pebble in a pond. We could do it together. We can put Canada back on the map and make Canada the shining example of what Nikken looks like. We're being laughed at corporate. I get these little nudges back and forth, these little rubs every now and then from Kurt saying, Canada, not doing whatever. Meanwhile, Canada's always been 15 to 20% of Nikken sales in North America. We're only 10% population, so we outshine and outperform the US on it every time, and that's network marketing in general for Canadians. But when it comes to sheer volume, we need to get the volume, right? Because that's what they look at. They look at the bottom line, which are the numbers. So what we could do is we can organize a campaign. Let's put Nikken on the map in Canada. This is January 2nd, all over again, 1992. What do we have to do now, December 11th? We have the next 3 weeks to gather up the group of people who want to be part of the launch of Nikken, the launch of this opportunity. So now, what would you say to people when you're talking to them? You wouldn't be talking generalities. You wouldn't say, oh, there's this great company and you could be, oh, and they have great products. And well, let me show you these products. And Nikken's whole attention on products, every post and everything. Sales, get some customers. You want to get customers? It's really simple. Launch. You'll never hear Mike Dimuccio ever go back on that. Oh, I look for customers so I can build an organization. No. I build an organization so I can have customers. So that's the idea. So we need a campaign. It's like an election campaign. All the stuff that happens for an election, all stops come out, and people really campaign. That's what we need. We need to campaign. We can do this as individuals, or we can do this as a group. We could be the pre-launch. Right here. We are the pre-launch. Now what we need to do is gather up and create the rhythm for the public schedule come January. There needs to be a public agenda so that we can channel all these people into something together. So for me, right now, if it was you that I was having this conversation with, and only you, then I would say, well, I'm here and I can't be there, so this public agenda that's going to involve me is going to have to use technology like this. But see, this is now possible. When I launched my Nikken Business January 1992, this was not possible. What was possible were conference calls, telephone calls, which we had. We were doing national calls to support the agenda, to create that weekly event that people could plug into and get a sense of the bigness of Nikken. It was a powerful agenda. We called it the National Network Alliance. And those calls were basically validation calls, testimonials. There's 3 guests, two business, or 2 product and 1 business, usually. And at the end of that call, was moderated by 1 person, but it was just simply a call to allow people to get on and hear how exciting this was as a business internationally, so that they could take that little thing that they now have and see the value of it in a bigger context. So we could do that. We could do which is what I'd like to do, by the way. I registered the name, thenikkenchoice.com. So I'm going to point the nikkenchoice.com into a Zoom event, so that on a scheduled night every week you can plug in. I just haven't decided on what the presentation is, but Dennis Estes put together something with a few people that I think I'm leaning toward. I might add 1 slide to it, but the point is I'm going to do what I can to recognize that I'm not launching Nikken locally. I'm launching Nikken nationally. And in order to support a national agenda and team players all over the country, I need to have this technology at my disposal to be able to put people together and create that public agenda. So there's a public agenda, there's a private agenda. The private agenda is the faster rhythm that creates the flow into the funnel on a larger scale, that daily, weekly rhythm, right? And then we get to the bottom of that funnel with the people who come out that funnel as our partners, what I refer to as a partner. We should have identified the next wave of partners before the month is out. So every week converts prospects into either customers or distributors. Every month converts distributors, consultants, into partners. So something in the month has to happen to cause a person from going mentally into the experience of Nikken as a collective to that, wow, I get to be part of this next campaign. So there has to be another agenda, the monthly rhythm, where you sweep through the organization and find out who wants to be part of the next wave, who wants to launch the next wave. That's your A team. Your A team needs to be gathered up once a month. So there has to be an agenda on a monthly basis that allows you to identify your A team. So what's the event or the nature of the event that would allow that to happen? We call that a lock-in event. And that's where you really put the call out to the new recruits and you say, hey, new recruits, welcome to Nikken. We're glad you joined us. There's so many different ways you can do this business, part-time, anytime, spare time. But we're putting this call out to you right now because we're looking to recruit the next wave. The next wave is a group of people who are going to go silver next month. No, not 3 months, next month. We don't do things in 3 months anymore. We do it next month. So I need to know who wants to go now because that's who I'm going to work with. So don't have to tell us right now. Have a great night, but we hope to hear from you tomorrow. Bang. End of story. What we find out is who wants to go next. And so as I was saying, compressing time, if you take 3 months to break a silver, there's not enough focused on the effort. I can get 30 people in a room in 3 days, but if I give somebody 3 months, I'll tell you what happens. The dentist appointment, the kids in school, the this, the that, the boom, the bomb, the beam, the boom. And life gets in the way of them being able to commit. But if I can get it down, compressed to 1 week, we got 1 week to do this. So example, take Marty again. I met Marty in August, 20-something. By the end of August, he made the decision that he wanted to do this. And so he asked me what I should do. I said, well, we need to sponsor 10 to 15 people. I wish I knew then what I know now. So he got 13 people in his living room, handpicked, invited them into his living room. I did the voice of God, you know, the call on a speakerphone. After he did the initial presentation, the warm-up, the introduction, the presentation, what he had witnessed when he came to Toronto and learned about this and put his spin on it, and talked about what it was that they had in mind to do. And I came in on speakerphone, answered questions that he asked on behalf of his audience who were maybe too shy to say, is this like Amway? He asked instead, is this like Amway? Can you tell us why it's not or what it is like and so forth? So he asked all the tough questions that he knew they would have to handle all the objections up front as somebody on their side. He acted as if he was on their side of the fence and I was on the other side of the fence, and I was like, sure. And I got into my story. My upline then called on a speakerphone. He was the second A. At the end of that night, a bunch of people took some products home to try. He had a few samples. And one at a time, we followed up with an ABC call. One at a time, they were all ABC calls. And 12 out of 13 people joined. But what did they join? They joined a launch that we were doing in September. They joined with an understanding that it was $5,000 commitment because that's what we asked. Not because they had to. That's what we asked, to be part of this launch. So not only did we tell them what they needed to do and what was going to happen, we also gave them the requirements. If they wanted to be a part of this, this is what it was going to take. So, okay, if you tell people if this is what it's going to take, they're going to say yes or no. I don't need to twist their arm. This is what it's going to take. And so people, 12 out of 13 said yes. That's 60,000 points volume that went in on September 7th, all in 1 day. You guys are worried about breaking a silver? 60,000 points in 1 day. It only takes 20 to go silver at that time. So I think we've been going in the wrong direction with respect to our compensation plan, lowering the bar, lowering the bar, lowering the bar, giving more time, giving more time. We're just bringing it down to the lowest common denominator, and the effect has been devastating. I think what we need to do is make our own decisions about what it looks like and start setting up our own expectations and start telling people this is what it takes. You can do this anyway, anytime, anyhow. But if you want to be part of this campaign, this is what it's going to take. This is what we're asking for. And so now you understand why there's a good, better, best scenario in terms of our product packs. Even if Nikken pulls out on the packs, which they did, you'll notice that we've very quickly determined that, well, they can do that, but we're not. We have packs. Because that's our business. That's how we do it. We ask people, boom, boom, boom. One thing I'm learning that's not been confirmed, and this is going to be recorded, so until we get it absolutely bulletproof confirmed, this is what I'm understanding. A person who does a certain amount of auto ship, let's say your personal auto ship, if you convert that auto ship to retail from wholesale, it's going to count for your PV. Because it's a retail auto ship and not a wholesale auto ship, and the computer system doesn't know the difference between one and the other in terms of customer or not. But so that's what I'm understanding at this time. So that should bring some relief. Yeah.
With that understanding, would the discount codes apply for that retail auto ship under those scenarios? I know we don't really know, but
well, maybe if you ask somebody to go into your PWP and place an order with a discount code. But when you go into your place an order, you know what? I haven't tried it. I haven't asked that question, but it's a good question. Because I think when you're in your back office and you place an order, I don't think you could enter a discount code.
Not in my back office, but for my customers.
Oh, yeah, that does count.
Okay, because one of my customers is my clinic.
Yeah, your customer, your clinic can absolutely use your discount code as a customer and receive whatever benefit you want.
So that helps us to address some of that stuff.
That is only a thing that is currently possible. What I'm being told about the version that they're creating in January may remove that from happening. Okay. May remove the auto ship part of that, meaning they're going to have a auto ship incentive.
Right, instead of the discount.
Will override that discount scenario. With exception, then the discount may still apply for
non-auto ship.
A la carte sales, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So I'm not sure exactly yeah. So anyway, so come January could be a very exciting time for us if we choose. And so between now and then, think about what you need to do. And I want you also to think in terms of, if I was a brand new person, what I would want them to do if I knew that January 2nd was the official launch. And on top of that, there needs to be a calendar that you're working toward. I published the calendar for my group. We were 11 people. And we had a calendar of events for the month of January. We didn't have one for February. We didn't have one for March. We weren't thinking that far out. We were just thinking, January's our launch month. What are we doing to make sure that we've done as much as we can to give this the best push possible? It was a local calendar, obviously, because we were local. And I did that. I had a full schedule. I mean, I talk about a full calendar. We had a Tuesday lunch meeting. We called an executive briefing. We called that because we're appealing to the white collar worker. Executive briefing, and I don't recall if we had lunch or not scheduled, but it was a short meeting, 80% business, 20% product. Then we had a Tuesday wellness preview. Again, the vernacular wellness preview. Wellness preview to me means 80% product, 20% business. That was our wellness preview Tuesday night. We had the same thing on Thursday, an executive briefing and a wellness preview Thursday. And these Tuesday and Thursday, one was on the east end, one was on the west end. So we were covering geography. We were covering timetables. So daytime, white collar, nighttime, blue collar. And the other thing is, every meeting we had, we invited people to the next meeting, the very next meeting. And so we had the calendar at the back of the room for people to take copies of the calendar so they knew when the next meeting was, that they can bring people out. So we dug the trench, if you will, to create the flow of that audience, the flow, so that we could create a lot of momentum. Not a lot of competence required. The competence was at the front of the room. That's where the competence was needed. The rest was the calendar of events would move them through. So the 80% business to 80% product to the Saturday. So we got Tuesday and Thursday covered. Friday had a lunch, an executive lunch, where we served sandwiches. It was like $15 at a local hotel. We needed to know in advance who was coming, so we had a certain quantity of people. We knew 20, 30 people, executive lunch. Again, this was just to catch a certain audience. And then Saturday, 9 to noon, was a basic training, getting started training. So whoever came in the week, wanted to know about what it takes to get going and to be successful, they got that information Saturday morning. But that information was also a little booklet called the Getting Started Training. And that little booklet is what we used and would sell. Everything had a cost because we didn't just give them away. And they would take that home and they would see, oh, I got to make my list. I got to, the basics of getting started, basically. But everything that we needed them to know and do was on that page, plus the calendar. They were equipped to go out and come back the following week and take advantage of the Tuesday and the Thursday and the Friday and the Saturday schedule. So that was our early Feel the Hopper schedule. Then we had the lock-in event. Reed Nelson came into town. I believe it was the third week of the month. He was the lock-in. And he was the big kahuna from wherever to come in and tell us about Nikken, tell us your perspective, tell us why this is the right move and so forth. And that was the lock-in event. And then month end was simply dealing with the entourage of people that were joining us, continuing our calendar. And it was actually the last week of the month of January that we realized, holy crap, we don't have a calendar for the next week. So we had to quickly decide what was the calendar in February going to look like. And then we created the calendar in February, and we never published more than 1 month at a time. We only gave people, this is the month we're in. We only operated in this month. Our compensation plan was based on this month. And so that's how we operated. So I don't know if I've missed anything, but if I go back to now this 2 weeks time frame, what are we doing in this 2 weeks in pre-launch? What in February, when that new person who at the end of January says, pick me, what are they doing in pre-launch? What's their pre-launch window? When's their official launch? Well, that's where you have your calendar and you pull it out and say, okay, let's look at the rhythm, let's look at the event schedule, and let's align your calendar with this calendar and pick your D-days. When's your launch date? When's your official launch date? And then you start to work not everybody, those who are in launch mode, the ones that are on your radar. If I say draw out your group, you wouldn't put anybody on that paper who wasn't in launch mode, who wasn't about to engage in a new launch. And sometimes, most of the time, I have to do a conference call or a group of calls to figure out who from your downline is actually going to be part of this next campaign. And so one of the first things you might want to do, those of you who have some downline, is take stock of who might want to be part of the next campaign. So you're starting with who you've got, and now you got to add to that. And Maggie, if you want to share that video of Monday with this group, if you haven't already, feel free to do that link, so share that link so they can see how it's staged, the 90 days, the D-days, and so forth.
Did everybody get that? I did share it.
Okay, good. So this next 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks in the life of this person who's going to be launched, the conversation is about the launch, what's going to happen. So it's not just Nikken. It's not just being involved in Nikken, this great idea, this great technology, this great opportunity. It's about being part of this campaign, this thing that's going to happen, this date with destiny. So you're going to have multiple dates with destiny. So the bigger calendar is 90 days. Hence, the diamonds try and organize events on a 90-day rhythm. When we had such a thing, our business was thriving. When that calendar started getting disjointed because there was fractures and factions within leadership, that's when things started to fall apart. That's when Nikken came up with the Nikken rhythm. The Nikken rhythm then took over that 90-day cycle because there were some people who were coordinating that effort behind the scenes, myself included. And then when that was picked apart by corporate's decision to back out of that, then once again, the rhythm imploded, and we started having all of this event. Hey, how about this event? And 2 events next to each other throughout the rhythm. The rhythm is back. I know that the 2016 calendar that's being coordinated is being coordinated by the multiple teams, but they're saying we need to be sure that we're not conflicting in our 90 days. So there's actually a 90-day cycle being developed by the Diamonds for next year. Already the event schedule that's been published is sequenced so that we know we have an event every 90 days to point to. And that's the event that the bigger rhythm, if you will, where that's where the next silvers are found. In my opinion, it's what inspires that next group of people. It's the lock-in of all lock-ins. You get them at an event like that, and they start to see much further out. They start to see much deeper in for themselves. They connect to what it means for them to be a leader in Nikken. And so you start to see people emerge from that. Those are the ones who are on the top of my radar. Those are the people that I'm focused on to break 3 silvers in 90 days. They've got to rank advance. And I never set a goal for silver. You'll see that in that presentation of last Monday. It's always gold or above. Silver is a consequence of launching somebody. So these people that hit my radar as a result of a lock-in, such as the lock-in that happened in San Antonio, such as the lock-in that happens in the next 90 days. Wow, we got some serious wind out there. Anyway, what happens in the lock-in is decisions are made, as we've been told. The bigger the lock-in, the bigger the decision. So I can look at somebody in that coming out of that event and say, okay, do you want to play in the major leagues now? So then I can take a personal interest in them. I can then look at their launch and create a scenario for them, kind of like what we're doing right now, very much like what we're doing right now. So it's a little bit more personalized rather than a general launch equation. It's a very specific launch equation. So I'm working with people specifically on a launch equation for their next 90 days. So I've asked, for instance, the people I'm mentoring right now to do some homework for me. Their homework is to review this information so they understand psychologically what we're about to engage in. I've asked them to start looking at their group and start drawing out their group so that they can see who do I have to work with. You know, if I was starting from scratch, I'd have nobody, but I'm not starting from scratch. I might have some people, but who are those people and what conversation needs to happen so I know whether or not they're really willing to play. I just did a call, for instance, with a group in Mexico. We call that a PAC call, Power ABC Kickoff Call, where I had the person who's going to launch to Diamond. She's a Platinum going Diamond in the next 90 days. I had her immediate sponsor who's a Platinum, her immediate sponsor who's a Royal Diamond, top income earner in Latin America, their immediate sponsor, which is Bo Tennis, and me. So we had a stacked of A's who know what they're talking about in support of this new person to go for Diamond. And then we put the call, she had those wannabes, potentials from her group, bring them to the call and let's find out whether or not they should be on this drawing. And so we put the call out. This is what's happening. Decision's been made. This is the drop dead date, March 16. This is what it's going to take. We're talking about a calendar of events. It's going to be very aggressive and so forth. Your goal will be to break rank. You'll be breaking rank in the next 90 days. Don't answer us now. I just want you to know what we're doing. We're doing this with or without you. That's what we're doing. And so give us a call in the next 24 hours. Let us know if you're in. In the next 24 hours, those who wanted to be part of this made the call, which, by the way, in her case was all of them. And so now we know, what does the map look like? What's her current genealogy downline look like in terms of who's playing? They may not be exactly front line. They are where they are, but we now know who is on the radar. We've got the airplanes on the radar now. Now we have to guide them. Okay, so the guide is a 90-day, we need to move everybody 90 days in one direction. Not like this, like this. So we need a public event calendar. We need a rhythm. We need them to understand what it is. We need to know we're in pre-launch right now. We officially go into launch, and then there's phase 2, phase 3 of that 90-day launch strategy. So it's all mapped out mentally, emotionally, and now they're engaged. Now everybody's running, but at least they know they're running in a direction, and they don't know why they're running, and they're running together, so they know that they're not alone. Oh, I got some running mates with me. Great. Okay, cool. I'll keep going. It's a completely different scenario than, oh, yeah, I'm looking to go gold. Yay, gold by June next year, and hope to find somebody and a few people in the next few months, and whatever. Completely different energy, completely different strategy, completely different result. You're going to see.
Well spoken.
That's exciting, yeah.
I'm glad you recorded this, Maggie, because now we have it. Maybe you can share the link with me, and then we can put it out there and let more people hear about this.
Absolutely. I look forward to using this as one of the steps to help develop new leaders as well.
Definitely something you keep for that A team. This could be overwhelmed for the general populace.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that was awesome. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Reframes a lot that I've been pondering the last couple months, so that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, no, you were trying to say something, but you're on mute.
You're muted.
Still muted. Maggie, you can probably be manually
There we go.
You're on now.
Now we've lost them.
No,
Oh, you're
we
here.
got you.
We got you.
Go
We
ahead,
don't
say
have you.
something.
We can talk.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
And see you.
I was just saying sorry I came in upside down. I was feeling a bit tricky this morning. I don't know what's wrong with my system, but
Not a problem.
thank you.
Well, Maggie, you should probably end the recording so that people don't have to stay on too long, but thanks for listening. And if you have more questions, I'm sure this will come up in the follow-up. We'll have another follow-up then.
That'd be great to do a follow-up. I thank you for putting that out too, and that'll be good. And I'll let you know if I connect when I hear